new time for.
Hey, Lori, how you doing? Good.
Enjoy this Verizon ringback tone while your party is reached.
Actually, for Christmas, a friend of mine got his spot at Bed Bath & Beyond.
But you don't have a thing to get in there.
Hello.
That's right.
Recognizing the higher authority.
I will call the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order at 6:30 p.m. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Patricia Pietzu, and Alderman Schmidt will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us, God. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I ask the clerk to take the roll, Alderman Harriet Gathright is participating by telephone, and under the terms of state law that allows her to do that, she needs to explain why she can't attend, if she can hear us, and who she is with, if anyone.
Yes, I am out of town. I'm not in Nashua, and I can hear you very clearly, and there's no one with me.
Thank you, and we can hear you as well. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman Gidge. Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Present.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Laws.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Karen. Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderwoman Malizzi-Gola. Alderman Tenza.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt. Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman McCarthy.
Present.
We have 13 members present.
Also present, Mayor James W. Donchis and Corporation Counsel Stephen A. Bolton. Communications?
Communication from Brian S. McCarthy relative to the Special Board of Aldermen.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
To accept and place on file.
Motion is to accept and place on file. Is there any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Malizzi-Gola.
Present.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas.
Motion carries. Tonight's sole agenda item is a presentation on the drug court, and I would like to ask Peggy Gilmore to come forward and talk to us. You can use Alderman Lopez's seat if you want to.
I'm not sure how it works.
The other side.
We can manage. I feel like Alice in the little chair. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the Board of Aldermen for having us here tonight from the Hillsborough County South Adult Drug Court Steering Committee. We just wanted to come and make sure that you understood what was happening in your city in terms of the drug court. I represent here instead of Tom Monahan, who's the chair of the steering committee of the drug court. The steering committee is a 5-member, really community representative citizens who work in conjunction with the drug court team. But our role is to do community education and outreach, and we do some kind of fundraising for things that are not covered by the drug court, either the grant funding, the federal grant funding, or through the state allocations. So the steering committee has secured money for security deposits in housing. We have a fund that purchases incentives for people as rewards in the drug court. We've been able to get a scholarship fund at the community college so that some of our participants are able to access their higher education. And as I said, we're community members, 7 of us. There's myself, Mr. Monahan, who is the chair, Mary Lou Blaisdell, whom you all know, is here with me tonight. Tori Hack, Jim Tolner, Jay Leonard are all members are all members of the steering committee. What we'd like to do tonight is kind of tell you how the drug court works from the inside. And Dave Tenza, Alderman Tenza, who used to be on the drug court team, has the best knowledge, I think, in this group about what it's like from the inside and what the parameters are for people to participate. Also with us is Julie Christensen Collins. She is the coordinator hired to really coordinate the drug court, to keep the trains running on time, to keep everybody on track. So she's also here to answer any questions we might have. But perhaps David can tell you what happens on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, and thank you very much. And so, as Senator Gilmore mentioned, I was on the drug court team as it started here in Nashua. I think back in 2014 is when it really got up and running. And so as part of that, the whole team has attended local and national trainings to be prepared to implement this drug court model locally. And so we have some slides prepared. But one of the things I just wanted to let everyone know that I think there's a misperception about drug court. That drug court is appropriate for people who are just starting off in the criminal justice system and who, may need some extra services to ensure that they don't continue in the criminal justice system. The drug court model is actually the exact opposite of that. And it is the model is you take the most high-risk offenders, you take the people who are in most need of drug treatment, and try to get them this intense supervision and intense judicial intervention so that they are rehabilitated to the point where they're not continuing to commit crimes in our community, and they're healthier, and we're all safer because of that. So we also have here tonight, and she'll be speaking in a little bit, Tina Smart, who is a lifelong resident, I believe, of Nashua, who is a graduate of the drug court program. And so Tina, I think, will be able to speak a lot more eloquently about just the impacts that drug court has on individuals who go through the program. So the question is, why drug court? I think the other thing to point out, too, is that what the city is doing now with the safe stations and the various other programs, the mayor's opioid task force, is very complementary to what the drug court is doing, and it serves a much different population, though. So why drug court? 80% of offenders abuse drugs or alcohol. Nearly 50% of jail and prison inmates are clinically addicted. It's these addictions, it's the substance abuse, which is bringing them back into the criminal justice system. About 60% of individuals arrested test positive for illicit drugs, and 60 to 80% of drug abusers commit a new crime after release from incarceration. I think anyone who sits and is part of the criminal justice system will tell you that folks who are addicted aren't deterred by jail sentences. Sometimes the jail sentences are the easiest thing for them to do to get off the street, to get clean. I can tell you from my work now, it's easier to stay clean in jail, and once you're clean, a lot of people have good intentions about coming out and remaining clean. It's a much different situation when they are placed back in their communities, back in the environments which led them to commit crimes and to do drugs. So, there's obviously a need. I don't think anyone would argue that there's not a need for intense supervision, especially now in our communities. So this is no one from Nashua. This is a one participant in a drug court, and this is, you'll see a booking photo of her. There's another picture of her at the end of her completion of drug court later on in the presentation. But so the drug court model ensures compliance with treatment, significantly lower treatment dropout rates compared with non-judicially supervised treatment. So the way drug court works, once someone pleads into drug court, it's typically someone who is going to serve a state prison sentence, meaning a sentence of longer than 12 months at the House of Corrections. They're going to go to the state prison in Concord or Berlin if they're a man. If they're a woman, they're going to go to state prison in Goffstown for now. And rather than send them in, they're going to serve these sentences because they've been through the system so much, because they're committing not necessarily petty crimes, but they're committing essentially non-violent crimes, but they're just committing them all the time. They're the people who you've seen, their names are in the paper for third strike thefts over and over and over again, or burglaries, a lot of property crimes, maybe even some drug possessions, things like that. And so these are the folks that, the normal means of the criminal justice system hasn't worked for them. They've been on probation, they've gone through the system, they've been incarcerated, and it's still not working. Drug court is a model that tries, and really the difference between drug court and regular probation is this idea of judicial supervision. When someone comes into drug court, they're required to do treatment, they're required to do probation. The treatment consists not only of drug treatment, but also could consist of mental health treatment. We know that a lot of folks who have drug issues also have co-occurring mental health disorders. And so the drug court seeks to treat both of those issues in a way that is helpful to each participant. But in order to make sure that they're being where they're supposed to be, and to make sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to do, they have to meet with the judge once a week. I believe it's still Tuesday afternoons that everyone meets at drug court. I tell everybody the sessions are open to the public, so anytime that you're interested in seeing how it works on a week-to-week basis, please stop by at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoons, and you can sit in and see how folks are doing on a week-to-week basis. But every week before the drug court session, the judge meets with the entire team, and they talk about how folks are doing, whether they've been compliant with all of their treatment, whether they've stayed clean. They're also randomly drug tested throughout the week. It could be as few as 2 times, but it could be more than that. The key really is that it's a random drug test, so they don't know when it's coming. All of this is done through community council out on Amherst Street is where the program's run out of. And every week they go in front of the judge, and the judge will tell them, whether they've been compliant with their treatment or whether they haven't been compliant. If they're not compliant, what happens is they receive some type of sanction. They could be non-compliant for, being late or missing treatment, and in which case the sanction is you have to show up early for treatment. for the next week by 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. They could be non-compliant because they've used drugs throughout the last week and they've been caught in a drug test, or even worse, they could have used drugs and lied about it, and that's it's something that gets sanctioned pretty harshly, because one of the things that the judge wants to see is that people are being honest with them, with not just the judge but the whole team. The reason for this is obviously if someone has used, and there are going to be relapses, but if someone has used, the treatment team wants to address the underlying causes and concerns for why they used. And so, even just drug use may not get a harsh sanction, but it may get more of a treatment response in the beginning. And the idea is to build trust. The idea is to let people know that, the drug court team is there to help them, but that if their drug use continues to be a problem and they're not honest about it, then the judge is there to hold them accountable. So that's a kind of a big just overview of the week to week of the drug courts. The national studies show that drug court reduces crime by as much as 45% more than other alternatives like probation or just strict incarceration. Without, incarcerating somebody without giving them the help that they need is not going to ensure their success once they're released back into the community. And also, drug courts save money as compared to just strict incarcerations. Studies show that every dollar invested in drug courts save as much as $3.36 in criminal justice costs alone. When you consider that a lot of studies will say that it costs about $30,000 to $35,000 to incarcerate an inmate for a year, you'll see that the $8,000 per participant that it costs to treat people in drug court and supervise them within the community is a great savings to the county and the state and locally here. So I talked about a lot of these. It's a multidisciplinary team approach. National Police Department has been very helpful with the Hillsborough County Drug Court. It first started, Deputy Chief Carignan was on the drug court team. Lieutenant Rourke, when he was lieutenant, was also a very active participant of the team, and now Lieutenant Kenny, I know, is on the team that meets once a week. I think that's been a huge part of Nashua Drug Court's success, is having not only Nashua police involved, but also Hudson Police has been involved as well. The police have devoted resources to do things like home checks on a lot of the participants. So I believe it's the POP unit, every once in a while will go out and randomly on a Thursday show up at someone's doorstep to see how they're doing. They have plenty of other work to do, so it's appreciated that they've devoted time to the drug court as well. And, it's a good way for a lot of participants to interact with police on a different level than they're used to doing. So it's hopefully, I think if National Police were here, they would say it's a worthwhile endeavor for them. As well, I mentioned that community council, and Julie Christensen Collins can probably talk more to this, but there are therapists who are part of the team who like I said, the programs run through community council. There are also case managers that are part of the team, a program coordinator who's part of the team, and Judge Jacqueline Colburn is the drug court judge here in Nashua. Frequent random drug testings, sanctions, and incentives. So if someone is compliant during the week, they get an incentive, and the incentive can be something as small as just a round of applause from everyone who attends the drug court that week, which for some people is it's a little pat on the back, a little pick me up, and it's helpful for them to get through that next week without using. There are other incentives that have been developed. Something as small as a candy bar that they can choose from. Once they have 4 weeks of full compliance, they are incentivized to choose from other, I hate to call them prizes, but other incentives, things like gift cards which have been donated Everyone who goes through drug court has to pay dues, $20 a week to help defray the costs of the program. The big prize used to be $80 off your dues, which, yeah, a lot of people appreciated, things like that. And so they're not big, but as Peg Gilmore mentioned before, there are a lot of other ways too that the drug court is able to help participants who are going through the program with scholarships or potentially funds for housing, things like that. Another important piece to this, I think, also is that in order to graduate drug court, someone's got to have all of their restitution paid off for all of their underlying charges. And any loans to the drug court have to be paid back as well. So one of the things that the case managers do is they work with folks on, just general life skills, things like how to go out and get an apartment or a job or pay down your debts, which is helpful for them. And so these are just some of the numbers, the results that the Hillsborough County Adult Drug Court has seen, and this is just in Nashua since since it started, again, back in 2014. There have been 115 participants, about 2/3 male and 1/3 female. There have been 36 graduates from the program. Again, about 2/3 male and 1/3 female. Almost 90% of the graduates are employed at graduation, and 44% of the graduates participated in educational or vocational activities. So the program is generally about 18 months long. Some people, 18 months is probably on the lower end of things. Some people may stay in there longer for about 2 years. As they go through the program, though, their requirements aren't as stringent as if they're doing well throughout the program. So the mugshot of the woman who, at the beginning of the presentation, here is her at her drug court graduation. You know, one of the things they say about drug court is that it's really a family court because so many of the folks who come through do have family members. A lot of them are estranged from their family members when they start drug court because of all the different issues that they've gone through and the trust issues and the lack of trust that has developed between them and their families. And then, you know, once they get clean, once they start doing what they're supposed to be doing, you know, to their family's credit, the trust builds back up, and they are able to reconnect with parents, children, and, you know, have that part of their life back, which is great for them. So it's currently about 50 people in drug court right now. The drug court was originally funded, excuse me, by federal grants. One of them was a grant by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. The other one was a grant from the Julie, you're gonna have to help me out. From SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration. Recently, the state has decided that they are going to fund drug court throughout the state, so there's some uniformity among the counties. I think I can say, you know, part of this was spurred because Hillsborough County would not commit to funding the drug court here in Hillsborough County. And so luckily the state did step up, and now we have a program in which, you know, they're hoping to expand to about 75% participants here in Nashua, which would be great because, again, there's definitely a need. I was in front of the judge the other day, and she said that there's a wait list about 20 people long to get into drug court just here in Nashua. There's also been a push because every county now has a drug court. It's easier to transfer. So if someone's arrested in Nashua, but they live up in Manchester or live out in Rockingham County, it's easier to transfer out there and participate in the county where you're from. So another future step is to strengthen gender-specific treatment to better serve female participants. I know in Merrimack County, you know, all of their treatment is done separately. So the men are treated in one location, the women are treated in a different location. And other than court, I don't think they interact much, which is probably a best practice and, you know, better. I think it's definitely better for the women. And that's, you know, what So that's what the drug court is trying to move towards now. And then finally, in another way that the city has been helpful and, again, another way that the drug court can support what the city is doing. There are a lot of participants who, once they get done the program, they want to help and give back to the community, to the recovery community. The board recently funded a 1 year for a position at Revive Recovery for a recovery coach coordinator, someone who could train other recovery coaches. And so I know that there are several drug court participants who are interested in being trained and becoming a recovery coaches for other people who are struggling. Hopefully, those folks who are not at the level where they need drug court supervision at this point, but hopefully can get the resources they need within the community and get over their addiction before it gets to the point of drug court. So I think now I am going to introduce Tina Smart to talk about a little bit about her experience in drug court and the impact that it's had on her. I also have some brochures and materials. Doesn't look like I have enough material, but brochures that I'll pass around for folks to look at. Tina, if you just want to give your name and then just talk a little bit about first what brought you into drug court and then how it helped you kind of get through everything.
My name is Tina Smart. Pretty much since 1984 is when I first started getting into trouble. Started experimenting with drugs, alcohol, hanging around the wrong people. I just didn't have no direction in my life. So I just continuously did the same thing over and over and over until I started getting into more serious trouble. Growing up, started selling drugs, using drugs. Even when I was pregnant with my first son, I used drugs. I was just a mess growing up. I really was. I felt lost, like I didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't really a part of my family because I chose not to be. I felt like an outsider everywhere. So I just kind of just went wherever I went, and the more I did things, the worse I put myself into situations that I started going into prisons. Back in 87, I think it was 87, when I was pregnant with my first son, I had my first felony. I got a 1 year and a day to 4 in Goffstown State Prison. And when I came out, because I was locked up for a little while, I got clean and everything. But when I came out, I still had all of the same behaviors and the same everything. So when I got out, I stayed clean for a little while, but I went right back into the same thing, the only thing I knew. And that continued pretty much my whole life, just doing the same thing over and over and over. And then at points, I would actually look forward to going into prison so I could recuperate my body, my mind, get some more strength so I can get up, go back out and do the same thing all over again, because that's the only way I knew. But this last time, in 2015, when I got arrested again, that was like my third strike in New Hampshire, to be honest. But I have many other cases in other places in Mass, Florida, everywhere I went, I've been arrested. And I still had I had 3 warrants when I got arrested in New Hampshire in 2015. Because of the drugs, I wasn't able to show up because I had to go get what I had to get so I wouldn't be sick. But when I got arrested in 2015, again, I was looking at going to prison. And for some reason, something inside me this time, I was tired. I was just really tired of the way I've lived my life. 35 years out there running the streets like crazy, trying to get clean, a little bit here, a little bit there. But I never really understood it or knew how to stay clean and how to change, because I only knew one way. So when I was offered the drug court program, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I said, something's got to give here, something. So that's when I accepted the drug court. And June 10th, I was sentenced in 2015. And I still was, still lost, confused, but I said, well, I'm going to do what I got to do. At least if I don't get anything, at least I'll make it through, because that's one thing. When I start something, I'm going to manage to make it through one way or another. But the first 6 months of drug court, I was unsure. I didn't know. I noticed the behaviors in me that were being pointed out to me from one of the caseworkers that I was working with, Leslie. She was a tremendous woman. she pointed things out in me that I would get defensive. It's like I would just get really defensive right away, and because those were behaviors, and I didn't want to face them. But she helped me face things that I needed to face, and being defensive, my body movement and everything, it would really show that I needed to change the way I was acting and feeling, and not be afraid to start learning how to really truly live a different life, because I really truly didn't know how. So I really started listening and paying attention and started participating, not to just get through the program anymore. I really wanted to change my life, because at one point it's like, well, just get through it. It's better than going to jail. But then my attitude so changed that I don't have it in me to be in jail anymore. I just don't. And I just did what I had to do to change my behavior. Today in my life, God, I'm a little emotional right now, but I have almost 3 years clean, and I have gone through school, and I have a good job today. You know, I've been living on SSI since 2005. I'm not on SSI anymore because I chose not to, because I'm very capable of doing all the good things that I can do for myself in my life. I have my family in my life. I have one of my sons living with me, that I never really had a chance to raise him as a child because of drugs, but I have him with me today. Drug court taught me how to live without the use of drugs, and how to change behaviors without getting defensive, and just admitting and being honest was really, and he's right, being honest is like a really huge part of drug court, because if you can't be honest with yourself and people around you, then what is the point? Because being honest wasn't part of my journey growing up. I was always manipulating, lying, stealing, whatever I could do to get what I had to get. So being honest was a really huge part of that program. And I had a few incentives, but I got in trouble one time because for the first 6 months, I was still drinking alcohol, but wasn't really noticing that I was doing it. It was like a normal thing, because I never had a dirty urine for drugs. I never relapsed, but I never stopped drinking either. So when I finally got caught up with my urine came back once with the alcohol, that's when the actual light bulb went off in my head that I can't drink. I can't, what am I doing to myself? Because that will get me caught back up into other things that I don't want to be caught back up into. So that's when I really, truly started really working and changing my life, because I had to go to Valley Street for that one night, and I'm like, this is not where I want to be anymore. So I just felt like a total, like just a loser when that had happened to me. I just felt so humiliated, and I don't have to feel like that anymore. So I really started really truly working that program, and it has given me such a life today that I could never see myself getting arrested or going to jail. I have associated with the police department, like he was talking about. I have respect for them today. They respect me today. And that feels really good. I can drive down the street in my car, and I don't have to feel paranoid. There's a cop behind me. There's a cop behind me. I'm out there waving at him, because that's who I am today. I'm a good person, and I've gotten to know who I am and what I like, what I can do. I have a good job. I work with True Green. I've got good benefits. You know, I've got a good life today, and I do a lot of sponsoring other women in recovery. I also work with one of the women in drug court, so I try to mentor her, and I stay participating in with drug court, even though I graduated. So I stay close to them, and I'll do whatever I can to be there for them, because they just totally just changed my life tremendously. So, yeah, my life is good today. So I guess that's pretty much, yeah, stick with drug court. It's worth it. I know I have. Thanks.
Alderman Wilshire.
I just want to say thank you, Tina. I've known Tina her whole life.
Yeah.
And right now, today, I'm very proud of you. You're welcome.
And thanks to the aldermen for listening to us today, for inviting us in to, share what the drug court is about. As I say, it happens here in Nashua every Tuesday. I think it would be a great field trip to come and see the power. And believe me, you do not want to go before Judge Colburn every week. In fact, when I got here a little bit early, Tina was already here. And I said, gosh, you're early. She said, I learned that from Judge Colbert. We will, this is just a heads up, we will be coming before you all, before the, we're going to ask for CDBG funds next year. This is just a preamble to that ask. So be thinking about that, and certainly entertain any questions that you have, particularly for Julie or me or Dave or Tina.
Alderwoman Mozigolia.
First of all, thank you. And Tina, thank you also, and congratulations. Judge Coburn was here maybe a year after the drug court had started. She came and presented. And at that time, she spoke about the incentives and people wanting to make donations. Could you maybe share with us, if people are listening, if they would like to make either a monetary donation or gift cards, how they would go about doing that?
That would be awesome, and I think Julie could give you the particulars as to how to practically.
To come up to the microphone.
Yeah, just, thank you, Julie.
Thanks. So I'm at the courthouse, and I don't think my number's on there, but you can contact me through the courthouse if it's like gift cards or something like that. The Friends of New Hampshire Drug Courts is a 501c3 organization throughout the state of New Hampshire. They've got a website, and they accept monetary donations that go to fund drug court programming that's not non-operational, so like the incentives program, loans we give out if someone needs help with first month's rent or something like that. If somebody were interested in donating, they could donate to the Friends of New Hampshire Drug Court. If they want to mark it for Hillsborough South, or if they just want it to go statewide, they can choose to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Julie, would you mind just, Mr. Chairman? Can you let the board know the percentage of people in drug court now who are from Nashua?
Sure. So about a little tiny bit less than 75% of our participants live in Nashua, with the remainder living in the outlying areas, Hudson, Milford, Merrimack, Hollis. It's a little hard to tell how many come from Nashua, but I would say the majority of those are from Nashua, and then actually some people from Nashua actually end up living in the outlying areas. So I would say about 3/4 of our participants at the moment.
Any other questions? Alderman Joni.
So somebody said that the state had stepped up. So is the program funded now? Is it financially secure?
So we still have a little bit of funding that we're getting through SAMHSA. So we're about half paid for by the state and half through SAMHSA. And the state funding supports some therapeutic time, case management, and the program coordinator position. It supports a few operational costs like drug testing. So it does support the basics of the program. But, there are things that we would be looking to do, like, partnering to get more recovery coaches trained and that sort of stuff. We don't have funding for that type of thing from the state. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
And one of the things we had talked about is, could we get funding, private funding or donated funding to do something like a gender-specific group, a woman's group, as Dave talked about in one of the other counties. They have found that gender-specific treatment opportunities can be beneficial, particularly for women. So stuff like that.
Other questions?
Brian.
Mayor Donches.
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation, so really thanks for coming in. And it's obviously a great program. Tina's done a great job, and that's really wonderful to see. One of the big success stories. One question I did have, so is there any follow-up in terms of just seeing how people are doing after graduation? 6 months, a year later, see if they're still successful? Because my guess is they are, and that is a very then powerful argument for the effectiveness of the program.
And so I'll say this, as part of the grant funding, a lot of those statistics have to be kept. I'm not sure with the state if they'll continue to do that once it's all state funding, but.
Yeah. So one of the things that drug courts look at is the recidivism rate of the people that go through the drug court, and it's usually measured at 1 year out and 3 years out. So the state has actually contracted with a research and evaluation agency that's actually doing a study statewide. And we're also going to be collecting that data. I mean, right now we don't have a whole lot of people that have been out more than a year, but we will be collecting that and measuring our recidivism rate.
I know that the graduation rate, Judge Colburn just talked about this at a presentation a couple weeks ago at the courthouse. The graduation rate in Nashua is about 60%, which doesn't, you'd love it to be 100%, but the highest performing drug courts across the country have about a 60% graduation rate. So the program that's put together here is high performing. And then as far as recidivism rates, Julie can talk more about it than I can, but again, the studies show that even if somebody participates in drug court but doesn't fully complete it, the recidivism rates for those folks is also lower than if they had just gone through the traditional criminal justice responses to the systems, meaning probation or incarceration alone.
Just from what I know of the area, any program that can keep 60% of people clean for 2 years is, remarkably successful. So.
I just to add to that, I think there has been a tremendous amount of research on drug courts over the last 25 years, and they've really been able to identify what components of drug courts are effective at promoting recovery and reducing criminal recidivism. So we really focus on sticking to those elements that have been shown and proven to be successful. So we feel pretty confident we'll be having the outcome studies coming along soon. And I think research has shown that drug courts, the recidivism rate is far lower than it is for traditional criminal justice programs like prison.
Any other questions? Alderman Jennings.
So so this is on the Superior Court level. My memory is that Judge Leary in the District Court, or the Circuit Court District Division, as it's now called, I thought he started a drug court. Is that?
There's a mental health court for folks who are struggling specifically with mental health issues, which is run through the circuit court, the district court. There's also a veterans court, which is somewhat similar. But again, in order to be eligible for drug court, the participants have to undergo 2 screenings. They have to show that they're a high risk to reoffend, meaning commit new crimes. They also have to show that they're a high need for substance abuse treatment. And so someone who is just to the district court is most likely not going to meet either of those criteria. The other research for drug courts show that if you put someone who is not high risk to reoffend or who is not high need for treatment in with a high risk, high need population, then you're actually going to make that lower risk person worse. The high risk people are going to rub off on that person, which is why when I started the presentation to say that it's not for the folks who are struggling, and it's not for the folks who are just coming into the criminal justice system for the first time. We don't want to put them in with the drug court participants because they're hopefully going to be able to be managed through other means than this intense program.
Thank you.
Anything else? Alderwoman
I
Mozegova.
just have a request, and I'll ask Alderman Tenza and Julie. If this brochure is available electronically, could we have it sent to Ms. Lovering so it can be attached to our minutes because it has your contact information on it?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Not? Thank you very much. Is there a motion? Alderwoman Wilshire.
Move to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Laws. Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizia Gola.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas.
Motion carries, and we are adjourned at 7:16.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.